This is the last and final part of my Half-Life 2 beta analysis. I guess it's turned into a review at this point. If you haven't watched my previous video on the Half-Life 2 beta, then be sure to check it out. Today we'll be exploring the sound design, and since the tone of the beta was dark, the sound effects are quite creepy. Here's a video by redux123 with over 700,000 views, which lets you hear some of these sounds. Let's have a listen. So about these drone sounds are loop sounds for the atmosphere or ambience. These are actually already in the retail game, but you can't really hear it that well because you're always paying attention to the game and you're concentrating on the gunfights as well as the Overwatch talking over and making announcements. Here are the next batch of sounds. Okay, so that generator sounds incredibly abnormal. It's just strange. Sounds like a Chinese xylophone from the dark web. The hit sounds would probably be used for jump scares or something, adding some sort of shock to the player, I assume. The office sounds are just typing. I don't really see anything scary about that, but it does hook the player into curiosity, making them think what's going on behind these locked doors. Office 5 LP sounds like a generic Fortnite sweat who's cranking 90s. Totally didn't steal that joke from the comments section. The heck was that? Okay, now we've reached the trans sounds. There's a specific trans sound I'll talk about later. Have a listen. Now you must be pretty creeped out. The one that stands out the most is trans6.wav. Now trans6 has an interesting story. So basically, trans6.wav is actually a recording of a cosmonaut who was burning up in the spacecraft, and Valve has added distortion to it to make it different. It's also explained in this video, I'm sure. Yeah, look here. So basically the recording is by the Giudica Cordelia brothers, who were two Italian former amateur radio operators. In May of 1961, or it might have been November 1963, not too sure about the day, but they got an audio recording of a lost cosmonaut who was a woman in a spacecraft, burning up till her death when re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. Pretty serious stuff, right? Have a listen to the original. So it's all Russian, and turns out this is all a big hoax, because Russians have said that this recording has lots of disjointed sentences and grammatical errors, and the Soviet space program only accepted highly trained Russian native speakers. If you want to know more about this, then there are some good videos on YouTube which also explain the hoax. Anyway, why did Valve choose this sound file? Why is it in the beta? This mystery will never be solved. Now on to some cut locations. There were many cut locations from the beta because Valve had so many concepts for Half-Life 2. There was so much, and overall it just became a mess. Cut locations include Vertigo, also known as the Skyscraper Palace, later replaced by Overwatch Nexus, the Arctic regions with the Borealis, Kraken Base and Weather Control, the Consoles Plaza, the Scrapyard, Air Exchange, Manhack Arcade, the Combine Factories, which also included a section called the Stenographer's Chasm, if I pronounced that correctly, and that was the Depot, the Coast, the Wasteland, which got turned into Highway 17, and some more locations if I missed anything. Now, onto the story. The story of the beta is honestly terrible and full of plot holes. So many concepts mean that a lot of things were mismatched. There was just too much. The story has tons of different versions. But originally Gordon would meet the G-Man first, with him explaining what happened while he was in stasis for 20 years. After that sequence, Gordon would then travel via the Borealis to get to City 17. Prior to that, apparently he would have spawned in the middle of nowhere in the Arctic region. He would have to find the Borealis himself. Anyway, they later changed that so that Gordon travels via train to City 17. The train would travel through the wasteland, and Gordon would meet a character named Samuel who would tell him what's going on, and he will give Gordon a spare gas mask to prevent him from breathing in toxic air produced by the air exchange. He would then reach City 17, meet up with Barney Kleiner, but at this point another problem spouts with the beta story. It's that the character development is wasted. Teleportation sequence happens. Kleiner wants to teleport Gordon to Kraken Base, but as the teleportation goes wrong, Kleiner ends up dying, which is honestly a waste of character's potential. If you get me. Characters dying off early means that there will be a lack of character development. The story would then progress, travelling out of City 17 and back in. Eventually the game would end in the Console's office at the top of the Citadel. Console, who is the original Earth administrator, who had a wish of being immortal, so he would use the Combine's artificial life support system, quite similar to Mist House in Fallout New Vegas, and some more. And that's all. The Half-Life 2 beta analysis has definitely been quite interesting to me.